It's a very big honor to me to speak in this holy and historical place where so many good leaders and fighters for social justice has been having the opportunity to speak with you. And thank you, because I think that all of you are good soldiers also for social justice and for freedom. Thank you to you. It's also a very important honor to speak after my brother Mamawolo. He is a very special person. He has been a soldier of justice, a soldier of freedom, a soldier of new South Africa, but he's also a very special diplomat that now is conducting so many processes at the UN, in particularly in the post-2015 development agenda, when now he is in charge of the responsibility not only of the South African people, but all the people of the world, for all those that are in need in the developed countries, but in particular all those in need in the developing countries. It's a very important honor to speak after you. I would like to share with you some ideas and experience, but I would like, first of all, to refer to those elements that has been presented by Fidel Castro in one of his last reflections, thoughts, when the title was "Mandela is dead. Why hide the truth about apartheid?" Well, there is so many important ideas. I would like you to invite you to read this thought of Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro, but in particular, I would like to refer to two elements that he used to refer to Nelson Mandela, to Madiba. There is no present or past event that has impacted world public opinion so much as the death of Nelson Mandela, and not because of his wealth, but for his human quality and the loftiness of his ideas and feelings. It is a fact that Mandela was an upright man, a profound revolutionary, and a radical socialist who endured with great stoicism 27 years of solitary confinement. It could not but admire his honesty, modesty, and enormous merit. During the memorial service that took place in South Africa, as you know, President Raúl Castro was there representing the Cuban Revolution, our historical leaders, our people, and the tribute that we would like to pay to Africa in general, but in particular to South Africa and to Nelson Mandela. And he referred that Mandela is the ultimate symbol of dignity and unwavering dedication to the revolutionary struggle for freedom and justice, a prophet of unity, peace, and reconciliation. He said also that alongside his comrades in the struggle, Mandela has led his people in the battle against apartheid to open the way to a new South Africa, a non-racial and a united South Africa, in his quest for happiness, equality, and the well-being of all of its children, a nation bent on overcoming the consequences of colonialism, slavery, and racial segregation. As Mandela's life teaches us, only the concerted efforts of all nations will empower humanity to respond to the enormous challenges that today threaten its very existence. Cuba, a country born in the struggle for independence and for the abolition of slavery, and whose children have African blood in their veins, has had the privilege of fighting and building alongside the African nation. I would like to refer to some ideas why Cuba has been so involved in Africa, why we have been fighting side by side with our brothers from Africa, why now we are still sharing their future, and why we are working closely also in the provision of the right to life, right to food, right to education, and right to health. First of all, Cuba and its nation has been a result of a very important influence of Africa. The Cuban nation has very deep African roots. We need to recognize that the independence and the fight for independence of Cuba has been always very closely related to the fight for the abolition of slavery. After the experience in Haiti, when that was the first revolution and the first Latin American and Caribbean independent country in the region, in Cuba, they tried to create an important hate against African descended persons, and they would like to always separate and segregate those people of European origin, all those that has been born in Cuba, and all those of African descent. In particularly because they know that the unity was the most important tool for the fight for independence. The first that took weapons to be fighting for the independence, the father of our nation, Carlos Manuel de Céspedes, the first act that he took was precisely to get the liberty for his own slaves. And then, when the revolution continued, precisely José Martí in the 90s, at the end of the century, showed that the only way is precisely to create a political party that was uniting anyone. It means that for Cuba, Africa is an issue that is in our blood, is in our history, and is one clear part of all our feeling, all our culture, all our anytime we are considering part of our neighborhood and part of our relatives and part of our families. That was precisely when the Cuban Revolution win, and at the time of the victory of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, our leadership, our historical leadership of the revolution, precisely continued the route of the lessons learned from José Martí and all our real leaders. And from the very beginning of the revolution, Cuba started a process of solidarity, and that was solidarity in two fields. In the military field, when we have been involved, starting by Che Guevara, that, as you know, he has been part of the assistance to the guerrilla in Congo during the 60s. But also, so many other Cubans has been part of the assistance to the national liberation movement and so many other countries in Africa, because to us that was clear that the only way to ensure justice and freedom in the world, that was through the independence of Africa, and to ensure the liberty and to ensure that the Africans have the possibility to determine their own destiny. Cuba was very active, in particular, in the independence of the former Portuguese colonies. That was the reason when the independence of Angola came in the year 1975, Cubans were already there, because some of our national has been part of the solidarity expression and has been fighting side by side with the people of Angola against the colonialism and the fight for independence. Precisely, that was after that in the 1978 also, there was the presence of Cuban soldiers backing the Ethiopian people when that was the time of the invasion by Somali troops, the dictatorship that existed at that time in Somalia, and that was trying to divide Ethiopia and to try to get the territory of Ogaden to be annexed to the territory of Ethiopia. But our position was very important. Our presence was very important in Angola. Has been two main historical moments of the defeat. For the first time, I would like to say, that is most important has been only the military and the strategic victory in the field. Has been the ethical and the moral victory, showing that the apartheid regime, that was not undefeatable. that can be beat and that can be defeated, because they have been imposing and they have been winning more and more influence in the southern part of Africa. And also it has been this complicity of some Western countries, some Western powers. That was this policy of so-called constructive engagement. That was to say, to avoid that the Sanchez regime in South Africa was creating a lot of difficulties for their economy, and in particularly, as Fidel Castro said, also that was the US and Israel governments facilitating to the apartheid regime the use of nuclear weapons. During the time of the presence of Cuban fighters, the Cuban soldiers in Angola, we were also facing the threat of the use of nuclear weapons against our people. But we never have any doubt that we need to remain there and to be sharing the fortune and to be sharing the future of our brothers in Africa. In Africa, in Angola myself, I have the opportunity to be working closely in some training camp and even in the headquarters of the ANC and on the SWAPO, because at that time has been two important liberation movements that they have been having that kind of logistic support from Angola. Has been also the fight of Namibia, and I think that the end of the apartheid regime was also important, because after that we have a new nation, that is the Namibia, that is now independent, and is also part, and is also part of those developing countries that are united, working together for a better world in the future. That is the reason that, as I said, in 1975 we were already there. That was the South African troops of the apartheid regime. They have been coming very closely to Luanda. As a matter of fact, it was a very important fight and was very difficult. The Cuban soldiers at that time were part of very brave combats, and that has been that was the historically the starting point of the process. Has been referred by my brother Mamabolo. Also was important the 80s. Well, that was a long period of always the apartheid regime backing the conservative groups or those that would like to overcome the popular government of Angola. There has been so many years of fighters, as you know, and Fidel Castro always said, from Africa, the only thing that we would like to have are the dead body of our soldiers. We never took any national resources, we never took any salary. We went, as a matter of fact, when I went to Angola at the end of the 80s, all of us, we were students at the university. We went there because all of us in Cuba, to defend our revolution, we have military training in our university, because it's a right and also it's a duty of every Cuban to defend our territory on the threat, on the military threat that we were facing for so many years, starting in the adventure of the Bay of Pigs, as you know, or Playa Girón, as we call, in the in the 60s, in the beginning of the 60s. And we were at the university, and on the voluntary basis, we were not recruited, we were not paid. We were not offered any salary. As a matter of fact, at the time that I was in Angola, the only money that I was receiving, that was the same salary that I was supposed to be earning if I was working in Cuba. Because in no way we were perceived on a basis of to be on a mercenary activity or to be on any kind of military adventure. We were there only on the basis of our commitment, on our principal responsibility, that we need to go to Africa, we need to go to Angola to express our solidarity, and also on a reciprocity basis, taking into account the important role that the African descent took in the formation of the establishment of the Cuban nation, and also in the fight for our own independence. We have been there. have been there for more than 10 years, has been in Africa in general more than around 2,000 people dead. All those bodies we repatriated to Cuba. In 7 December, every year, we have a commemorative moment to all those that pass away. That is also the day that Antonio Maceo, a Cuban of African descent, passed away. And that is a very special day of commemoration for all the Cuban people. And every 7th of December, we pay tribute for all those Cubans that have been fighting for independence and fighting for justice in Africa. And I would like to say that I was meeting with our President Raúl Castro at the time that the Secretary General of the UN was visiting Cuba some days ago. As you know, that was the summit of the Latin American and Caribbean community that took place in Havana. That was very successful. So many leaders has been there. The isolation of Cuba, that was totally different. And I remember that our president was very impressed for the way that the South African people, and in particular, he was referring, there was an order by Nelson Mandela, that the names of the Cuban fighters that passed away in Africa are there in the monument that has been created for those heroes of the fight against apartheid and the fight for a new democratic South Africa. But also, as you know, our solidarity and commitment with Africa, that is not only in the military field. We have been training and we were educating so many doctors, so many other graduates from the universities in Cuba. They are now there are ministers that are in a very high rank position in their countries, but in particularly also, we have been having thousands of Cubans, particularly doctors, that has been working closely with the African countries to fight any kind of sickness, any kind of difficulties that they are confronting in the right to health. And also, I think that it's very important to know that the brotherhood and the sisterhood between Cuba and Africa is remaining, and that is not only an issue of history. I think that we are fighting together. I was myself very honored to participate in the Durban Summit against racism and racial discrimination that took place in Durban, and now it's precisely that we need to be so proud of the life of Nelson Mandela, because Nelson Mandela, at the time that he needed to be fighting using weapons, he did, and he was doing that kind of a struggle on the military basis. But he also was the founder of the New South Africa, that is precisely the basis of a key player in so many areas, in particularly for the well-being of their own people, but also a key player and important partner in the defense of the common interest of developing countries and in the defense of the common interest of all people of the world. To end, because I think that also I would like now, after me, to have the opportunity to present and to have some words from one good fighter that we have now. She's a parliament, she's a member of the parliament, but she's also very special genetically, because she is the daughter of two important leaders and two important fighters for social justice, for freedom, and for the well-being of the humanity. I think that it's important to refer that we have here with us Mariela Castro Espin, and that is important. And that is important to refer the two family names, because it has been very important. His father is now our president. He's one of the two main leaders of our revolution, that is Fidel and Raúl Castro, both every time in any period, but also She is the daughter of one of our main fighters for the human rights in different areas, for the women's rights, for the right in different parts, and particularly even she was the initiator fighting any kind of discrimination, including the discrimination on the grounds of sexual orientation. Mariela is the director of the CNSX, that is a key center is part of the Ministry of Health in Cuba, but they are also doing a very important community activity and working as part of our civil society. They have working in so many education campaigns, and I think that to me is also an honor to present her. But before we requesting Mariela to come, I would like to end, first of all, repeating what Raúl Castro told in the memorial to Nelson Mandela. Honor and glory forever to the great comrade Nelson Mandela and to the heroic people of South Africa. Viva South Africa! Viva! Viva Nelson Mandela! Viva! Viva Cuba! Now, I give doy la palabra a Mariela Castro para que haga el introducción. Oh, sorry, I didn't do the job.
That's great. You saved us time. Brothers and sisters, we are deeply honored, and I especially am.